Gentlemen, doesn't it feel really good to hear that music again, huh?
What's up, fellas?
Good to be back.
So great.
We're all here. We're all well, at least so far. At least I think. Sometimes I'm not sure. But, that reminds me, too. This was like a couple days ago, right, Kenny? On our Discord, which, by the way, if you don't, join our Discord. Follow us at XFL Chalk Talk on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and, of course, YouTube, everybody. But one of our fans, I can't remember who it was. If you remember his name, Kenny, give him a shout-out. He's learning our intro song on the guitar and was, like, jamming out to it on the Discord app. How freaking cool was that?
Yes, I believe his name's Kyle Weipert, I believe is his name, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
it was really cool.
Yeah, so, Kyle, well done, sir. If we ever do a live show, we need to get, I don't know where Kyle lives, but we need to get Kyle to our live show, and he will just play our intro while we're all sitting there. How
what a dedicated fan. What an awesome fan.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, awesome. You'll have to pay for your own expenses and everything, but...
Of course.
We'd love for you to
play the guitar. Why aren't you doing this, Glass? You play the guitar,
That's what I was just going to say.
I don't know if I'm that good.
A little banjo.
Ukulele, Pastel. That's how we got started.
Sorry. Ukulele, whatever.
So how's everybody out there in YouTube world doing? It's been, I mean, I'm still like not even like fully comprehending what's going on, really. I mean, some people out there, like we were having our show meeting last night, wasn't it? And like some of us are like, man, I just, I have so much time on our hands. Kenny bought a bike. Gonna get into a little biking action. And then there's go ahead, Kenny.
I've logged over 10 miles the last 2 days now. It's fantastic.
Dude, that's not impressive.
Yeah.
My father-in-law goes like 60 miles a day, and he's like 65 years old. I refuse to go biking with that man because all I get is crap. The only time I went biking with him, we went 10 miles, and I got 2 flat tires within those 10 miles.
Oh my god!
And that was when my wife and I were first dating. So like it was like I was trying to impress him. Couldn't have gone more horribly wrong.
Isn't he? He's like a triathlete though, isn't he? Doesn't he do like triathlons and stuff?
He doesn't do them, but he was a Marine. That whole thing. Like
right.
I remember we did the Richmond Ucrops 10K. Which was the farthest I had ever ran in my life, and I beat him by like a minute and a half. Even though I'm like 40 years younger than him,
oh my god!
I thought it was like the greatest accomplishment in the world. How pathetic that is.
I feel like he took it easy on you, man.
All right, so I want to know how everyone's doing. Everyone that's watching, like, where are you right now? How is life going for you? Share it in the chat because Kenny just bought a bike. He's got nothing but time on his hands. For people that have young children like myself, this is a living hell. Like this is literally, and I have a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old, so I can't even imagine. Here in Virginia, they just closed schools the rest of the year. It's happening all over the country. I think it's probably going to happen everywhere by the end of this, if it keeps going. If it keeps going the way it's going. Riley, you see on the chat here, Riley, all those Cokes are catching up to you.
Cheers. Get back into those 10Ks you've been doing.
Ouch.
I know, right?
Riley, can you
I'm on the keto diet, son. I've lost 23 pounds. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's just near as Gus sound like Darth Vader right now.
I think he's just hungover. Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Like, I'm sitting here, and I'm not trying to rub it in. Like, you guys are different phases of your lives. You don't have children yet. So I'm sitting here doing tea parties and stuff while trying to work at the same time. And I get a picture of Glessner sitting out in a grassy knoll, drinking a beer with his guitar. I
know.
I get so mad.
Hey, Riley, I got to admit something, man. I just bought a pool yesterday.
What do you mean you bought a pool? Like one of those inflatable pools?
It's not necessarily inflatable. It's a 10-foot radius, man.
Like an above ground pool?
Above ground pool. I'm just trying to kill some time for the next 2 months, and I don't know what else to do. I have no kids, so I figure I'd get a pool, grab a beer, just chill out in the backyard.
Is it like a pool you got to install, or is it an inflatable?
I got to install it.
Nice. Nice.
Well,
Dude,
please keep us updated on how that goes, because that's going to be a disaster.
You know what this virus
That's going to
is
kill the
doing?
resale value of your house. You know that. Above ground pool, not even just an above ground pool, a 10-foot above ground pool.
It's
What the hell is anyone going to do with
filter
that?
It's just going to say pool. It's not going to say above ground or in ground. It's going to say pool.
Not only that, dude, your backyard's like 15 feet wide.
Well, that's why you had to get a
and half of
10-foot
it's gonna
pool,
be
Kenny. Yeah, I'm sure that's not properly zoned.
No way.
Did you check
Dude,
with the city of Savannah?
All right, in case they're listening right now, let's go on to the next comment.
You know,
All right.
you know what the virus has forced all of us to do? Have early midlife crisis. I've now become a cyclist. Pastel has a pool. Riley's spending more time with his kids.
I don't want it to come off like I don't want to
Dream.
spend time with my kids. It's just hard when your kids are there and you still have work to do. Like, my job's been crazy, man. Just been absolutely bonkers. But, I mean, this has been hitting people in so many different ways, you know, especially hourly wage workers, people with children. Now they got to, I mean, it's just a complete mess, and no one's ever gone through it. So, but the good news is that, you know, you see all these shows that are usually in person in studios and whatnot. They're all trying to adjust and doing remote shows. I'm like, welcome to our world, man.
Welcome to what we do.
We've been doing this for a minute, baby. The remote show world sucks. We've been together twice for a full show, our holiday special, and then Pastel, you weren't there for the pregame show, but we were in person. It's just so much easier when you're in person doing a show than it is remote. I mean, you guys 100%. Who follow us, have been watching a couple shows ago. All three of them got bounced at the same time. I come back from a highlight and it's just question marks on their screen, and crap like that happens when you're doing remote. And I'm sure because I mentioned that it's going to happen again tonight. But yeah,
Absolutely.
it's just at least XFL
happened.
Chalk Talk is here for you guys. This is just another normal day for us, joining remote from wherever we are in the studio, if you will.
Yeah.
Because Pastel's down in Savannah, Kenny's up north, Gless and I are in Richmond. We're used to this. So it's just another day at the office. You know what also is awesome? Finally, some positive things to look at. And it couldn't come at a more perfect time. We didn't line it up like this, but it worked out very well. Is that XFL players are now able to sign with NFL teams, and we have our first, correct me if I'm wrong, YouTube chat, but I believe 3 is what I've saw today. My day was crazy, so I may have missed 1 or 2. I'm not sure, but we got PJ Walker, Dietrich Nichols, and then just came out, within the last hour or so, Jordan Tamu. So we're going to go through those 3 one by one. We're going to talk about some players that, we think are, over the next couple of weeks, few weeks or so, going to be joining them, jumping from the XFL to the NFL. And, it's a very bittersweet thing, guys, right? Because, one, it really sucks that we didn't get to see them complete the season, especially PJ Walker. He was electrifying the XFL. And even Jordan Tamu, he was playing, out of his mind, especially for rookies. We didn't get to see them really finish what we started, so that really sucks. And it sucks that, they're probably not going to be in the XFL again based off their performances this year. But it is a great sign for the XFL that it's working. The formula is working. And you've seen it so far in these 3 players.
It's a very good sign. This is only going to increase the viability of players who want to join the XFL. It's going to the more PJ Walkers who are able to rehab their career. And, PJ Walker, I think I saw a stat today, has been cut or waived 12 different times in his short span in the NFL. For him to go down, become an MVP candidate, and now is legitimately going to be vying for a backup spot. Literally, he's going to be the backup quarterback to Teddy Bridgewater in Carolina because, as you know, Kyle Allen was just traded after he was signed. So he's only got to compete with Will Grier now. So that's an amazing, amazing thing for the XFL. It's an amazing sign that you can rehab your stock in the XFL and come back in a better situation in the NFL than when you left it.
And you know what? Let's not kid ourselves. This helps the NFL as well because now you're just adding more depth to the whole entire roster of the NFL. So that, say Teddy Bridgewater goes down for the Carolina Panthers week 4. I'm just excited to watch Carolina Panthers to see what PJ Walker does. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have this injection of players that we weren't necessarily expecting on NFL rosters that it's just bringing depth it's just not the starting 11 and starting 22 players that we have on an NFL roster. Now there's more players just to be excited about that have built their brand through the XFL. So it's going to be a give and take for both leagues. It's a positive for both leagues.
And that's a great point, Brendan. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to follow XFL stars and players from their favorite XFL teams to the NFL. Honestly, I didn't really think about that, but because there's definitely fans who are XFL fans only. We have a lot of them in our Discord who don't really follow the NFL, but are going to start following the NFL when these XFL players are on the roster. So that's a great point. It is a win-win situation for both leagues.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead, Riley.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and to Kenny's point, where PJ Walker, you mentioned, was it 12 times being waived? That's the thing, guys. When you look at the practice squad life, right, there's just so few opportunities to really show what you got. I mean, you have practice, you have those reps, learning the playbook, kind of running scout team and things like that. But like in terms of like real actual chances to showcase your talents and really move up the ladder, to the active roster and then move up the depth chart, it's damn near impossible, especially once you get waived a few times. And I think that's what we saw happen to PJ Walker. Like once you get waived a few times, it's like whether it's fair or not, you kind of fall into this category where it's like, yeah, what's the term that they always like to use? He's a camp body. He's a camp arm. Yeah, he's a camp arm.
A journeyman.
It's just maybe he just hasn't gotten the opportunities.
Right.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's not he's just a camp arm. And I think this league is, and you see it with PJ Walker, it's a league that gives that opportunity to get game film. And these NFL teams are now like, holy crap. I mean, I don't remember. One of you guys is not big on Will Grier. I know I'm not. I saw him play versus, it's you, Kenny. I thought it was. Maybe it's my hatred for West Virginia, but I just wasn't impressed when I saw them at FedEx Field when they played the Hokies. God, it was 3 years ago or something. But yeah, I think he can go in and legitimately compete for that backup role, especially considering the coaching staff, and I feel like he fits perfectly with kind of what Teddy Bridgewater brings to the table. They remind me very much of each other when it comes to skill set. So if a Teddy Bridgewater does go out, you could bring in a PJ Walker with that similar skill set and not miss too much of a beat.
Well, and here's the thing. I think the XFL's got to be doing backflips over where PJ Walker ended up because, like you said, Will Grier's not a certified star. He's not gonna. He's very beatable for the backup competition. But at the same time, Teddy Bridgewater has had knee issues. He's had injury issues, and who knows? Like, what if he goes out and lays an egg as the starter in Carolina? PJ Walker's the backup. He hops in, does well in Joe Brady's system, and now all of a sudden, you've turned this into a guy who's rehabbed his career into a backup role, has now rehabbed his career into a starting NFL role, which would be massive for the XFL. So I don't think there's a lot of situations that he could have ended up at really that would have been much better than Carolina. I think for PJ Walker and for the XFL, this is a home run of a signing.
Yeah, and let's not forget that Matt Rule was his college coach at Temple.
Yep.
So you got the Joe Brady factor that made a Joe Burrow into nothing into something, and now you got somebody like him, an offensive genius, with a coach that's familiar with him. It's the perfect formula for PJ Walker to go in there and show himself. And to your point, Kenny, it's kind of like Te'amu in Kansas City. You got the quarterback whisperer and Andy Reid.
I was so sized, Pastel, when I heard that, man. What a perfect spot for Tamu.
Dude, unbelievable, man. Like, if you're going to get somebody that can max out the potential of a quarterback, Andy Reid's your guy. When he was with the Eagles, he made Kevin Kolb, Michael Vick, Jonathan McNabb, all like MVP-type candients. I mean, he got Kevin Kolb. I know, man, right?
How much money did Andy Reid make Kevin Kolb?
Well, he's going to make Te'amu a lot of money, too.
That's right.
Kevin Kolb. Yeah, no, at first I was down on the signing at first glance because I was like, man, he's going to be behind Matt Moore. He could probably beat out Chad Henne because Chad Henne's been in the league forever. But the more I think about it, Andy Reid, if you're going to play quarterback in the NFL, Andy Reid's probably the guy you want to play for the most. I mean, you just got to figure out if they're going to keep three quarterbacks or not. If they do, that's great. I have a feeling Tamu's probably going to be the third quarterback behind Matt Moore. Matt Moore's been in the system now for I think 2 years. He played well when Mahomes was out this year. They kept winning. So it's going to take a lot to unseat Matt Moore, I think, for Tamu. But if he stays on the roster as the third quarterback, this is going to benefit him a ton.
Well, I think, Kenny, when you look at these two quarterbacks that just signed, I think that the situation that Tamu's in is much different than P.J. Walker. I mean, P.J. Walker, and we talked about it, has been in the NFL. He's been on practice squads. He's kind of a somewhat known commodity in the NFL world, where Tamu comes in as a raw rookie. And really, this was his opportunity to showcase the upside that he brings to the table. And I think with an Andy Reid as your coach, learning behind Patrick Mahomes, who's the best to do it right now, and I think he fits that offense very well. I mean, I don't think he's going to go in and expect to be the backup. I mean, Matt Moore is an established backup quarterback in this league, but like you said, he is getting older, and I think this is a freaking perfect spot for Tamu to come in and kind of just, get his footing under him in terms of the speed of the NFL and kind of work his way up the depth chart, because I think people often forget how young Tamu is. So I think, he's going to come in as the third string, but, if he's there and he's able to stick on the active game day roster, he'll be the backup within a couple of years, I guarantee it.
And again, let's think about this a little bit more. So why did he sign with Kansas City? There's multiple teams, according to the sources, saying that he could have signed with multiple teams. So he went to Kansas City for a specific reason, and it's not to beat out Patrick Mahomes. It's to get freaking coached up by Andy Reid, to get that experience playing behind Patrick Mahomes, so that he can go probably play for another team in the future and possibly try to grab a starting job. It's not to beat out Patrick Mahomes.
No, no, of course not. Anybody who thinks he's going to beat out Patrick Mahomes is crazy. Mahomes is probably the best quarterback in football, but from a learning standpoint, there's none better right now than Andy Reid, and there's nobody more innovative than Andy Reid. So who knows? Maybe Andy's already got some packages lined up to utilize Tamu's athleticism the way the Saints are utilizing Taysom Hill. So if you're going to sign with any team, being on an Andy Reid team is not the worst thing in the world.
Hey, Riley, you're going to like this one. Someone in the comments said that Cam Phillips should go to the New England Patriots. How perfect of a fit would that be?
I want to get into those. I want to get into that. I want to get into that talk. Yeah, that's true. I want to get into that talk, but I want to make sure we talk about Dietrich Nichols first, because he was the third player. He was the third player to sign. There were so many defensive backs that I could have seen going as the first player to make the jump from the XFL. I mean, you guys know my love for Jamar Summers.
Tavon Walker.
Josh Hawkins for Dallas. I mean, Kenny Robinson's going to get drafted, but Will Hill, you could see him bouncing back in the league. But Dietrich Nichols, he led the league in interceptions. He was just one of those guys. He was, in the right place at the right time. You're going to see a lot of these. He's always around the ball, deflected balls, things of that nature, just making plays. And he was in a great backfield with Cody Brown, who was the safety there. And the funny thing about Dietrich Nichols is he also played a little safety as well. Sometimes he would drop back for the Roughnecks in that two cover. So he's just one of those guys. He's a ball hawk. He's always around the ball, and he plays press coverage. They did a lot of man-to-man in Houston. So I think he's definitely worthy of being the first DB to make the jump, but I see a lot of guys following him, and I mentioned a few names there, and I think Cody Brown's going to be another one of them from the Houston Roughnecks making the jump to the NFL soon.
Yeah, you just can't teach instincts, and that's something Nichols definitely has. Yep. You talk about having a nose for the football, and when you have a nose for the football, you're always setting yourself up for success in terms of being able to create turnovers, pass deflections, whatever it might be. And I'm pretty sure he led the league in both deflections and interceptions. If he didn't lead in deflections, he was in the top 2 or 3. So that's something that you can't coach, and coaches have to love it. I mean, you see a guy who makes breaks in the football like that. And we saw it all year. Houston's defense, we always said, was not, it wasn't extraordinary, but it's very opportunistic, I think was the word we used a ton talking about their defense. Nichols, Deron Smith, those guys were always around the football, and Nichols showed the versatility he had in the secondary. So it was a matter of time before he got signed. And I think he's in a really good spot there with the Saints.
If you can create turnovers, you're going to get signed. Like, that's just it. You can get burnt a few times. It happens. But if you can he had 3 interceptions in 5 games? He had 6 passes defense. He had 3 tackles for loss, and
that game versus Dallas. That game versus Dallas, I think he had 2. One was off Jazz Ferguson, that deflection off Jazz Ferguson.
Yep,
there was
that's
another
right.
one early in the game where he was going to get the interception, and Cody Brown stepped in front of him and took it from him. So, like, he could have had 4 interceptions. I mean, Landry Jones was just throwing it to roughnecks all day.
You want one? You want one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
like
was a
they're
rough
actually
game.
stealing it from each other. Definitely a forgettable game in many ways for Landry Jones. But, yeah,
Well,
I mean – sorry, go ahead, Kenny.
No, I was gonna say, and the great thing about the Nichols signing is, he was an undrafted guy out of South Florida. So again,
Yeah.
we're talking about another player who has, he had a cup of coffee with the Cardinals, and then he was in the AAF and didn't get picked up, and now he's in the XFL, and he's one of the top 3 players signed right off the bat on the first day of eligible signing. So again, it's just another example of a guy who's able to rehab his career and make a name for himself in professional football league, and now has earned an opportunity to play in the NFL. And that's, if I'm the XFL, I am hammering that home to anybody who has a reserve contract in the NFL, anybody who's a free agent right now that needs that kind of opportunity, because the XFL is going to benefit tremendously from it.
Oh, 100%. And you're selling your brand. Like right now, Cam Phillips has a brand. Kenny Robinson has a brand. PJ Walker has a brand. All these guys we talk about, no one has heard about those guys unless you followed them in college until now. They're going to go to the NFL or come back to the XFL next year, and there's going to be a following. They're going to have a fan base. Like, this is just super awesome for not only like the leagues, but themselves. And they might get picked up by a sponsor for all we know.
All right, so Glessner is chatting with people right now on YouTube. He's
There you go,
itching he's chomping at the bit to talk about where he thinks people are going to go. Gless, they're talking about Donald Parham. What do you think, man? You think he's going to go to the Cardinals? For some reason, everyone in the chat is saying Arizona Cardinals. Do you think it's a good fit?
Yeah, I think it's a great fit. I'm going to be very minimal here because I know I'm echoing.
Are you? You're not
I am.
echoing. To yourself, you are.
Oh,
Okay, cool.
Just talk, Glessner.
okay. I'll go ahead and talk. All right. I think it's a great fit personally. Air raid guy wants a big H that can go get to the seams up the field, 6'8", great ball skills. Guy for Kyler Murray. I think it makes too much sense in order for them not to sign him. Man, this is distracting.
Well, take your headphones off when you talk. I didn't know you were echoing.
I was. That's why I hadn't been saying anything.
Yeah,
So when I'm
he was echoing
talking,
with
put
us
your
too.
headphones on. When you talk, take your headphones off.
All right, there you go. All right, there you go.
Let's try it that way. I was wondering, Gless, why you were just sitting there not talking. the whole time.
He's just like shaking his head, smiling. Like,
Well, I think Pastel,
Hey.
I'm also echoing for you too. So
He's
Well-
definitely echoing. The chat says he's echoing.
yeah.
Oh, the chat says he's echoing?
Yeah.
well, the people have spoken. You are echoing.
Gless
All right, well, then-
might be the dedicated chat room host today.
All right, well, then
Go ahead, Gless. Chat it up.
just sit there, Gless, and look pretty. That's,
I will. I'm just going to chat.
it's what you do best.
William and I are just talking about a bunch of air raid stuff, so I like it.
Dude, I think when you look at Donald Parham, I think he should stay right where he is. I think the Cowboys could use a tight end, right?
Oh,
Jason
Dallas,
Witten did
okay.
leave.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Jason Witten left.
Great
That's
move.
right.
I mean,
That's a good-
I don't know.
what a weapon for Dak Prescott, man.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I mean, he's going to have his options at this point. Honestly, I think he's probably one of the more higher end, if you want to call free agents, XFL free agents. I don't know what we want to call them. But he's definitely one of the more higher end players in the XFL to go to the NFL because you have like a tight end that can catch the ball. And I think I saw one stat where he got up to like 22 miles per hour on a play. I mean, this might be it right here.
He
the guy's
played
got
more
speed, he's got
snaps
size.
in the slot than he did at tight end, though. So
Yeah,
he's definitely
I
a
mean-
receiving tight end.
Oh, absolutely. And if you can find one of those, if you can find the next Rob Gronkowski, guys like that with that size, like, dude, you don't pass up on it. And there's not too many guys like that with that size. So, yeah, Dallas would be an awesome fit, but let's not kid ourselves. There's 31 other teams that would be an awesome fit for him, too.
Yeah.
Well, I just think from a schematic standpoint, Arizona makes so much sense. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury runs a lot of the air raid as well. And they're not going to put in the air raid, they're not going to put him in a 3-point stance and force him to block. They're going to split him out just like they did in Dallas.
He was such a matchup
Yeah.
nightmare in the XFL. A
I-
linebacker
I
couldn't
think
cover
the team.
him.
Yeah, no, he's I mean 6'8", 240. Like the dude's a freak. He's a monster. I think for me, the team I kind of had penciled in was his former team in the NFL, which was the Washington Redskins. You know who the Washington Redskins starting tight end as of right now
My
is?
God, they are desperate need
Fred
for a
Davis.
tight end.
Logan Thomas.
Fred Davis,
Oh,
Pastel. Pastel, Fred
Expertise.
Davis couldn't even make the XFL.
Dude, Logan Thomas, Virginia Tech quarterback.
They just
Converted
signed
tight
him,
end.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's their starting tight end right now in the XFL, or sorry, in the for the Redskins. So they'd be crazy not to bring him back in to compete for a roster spot because he should be able to make it.
Yeah. Well,
Wow, man,
dude,
that's crazy.
Can we just talk about the Washington Redskins for like 2 seconds right now? What are they doing?
You're going to do that, and I can't even talk.
Glass. Right now, so they traded.
Just
their
listen
best,
to us, Glass. Just sit
they
there and
traded-
listen to us bash your
As
team.
We
That's-
rag on your favorite team.
their best defensive player to Seattle for a 5th-round pick. They
That's
traded
not
for
true. He's not their best defensive player. He's played 50% of games the last 2 years, and he demanded a trade midseason and
can't
basically
stop.
forced himself out of the lineup.
Seems like Echo's
It's
gone away.
ridiculous. That was all they could get for him.
Not messing Glessner up anymore.
No.
I mean, it's just I don't know. I mean, I guess I mean, I reached out to a buddy of mine. His name's Kevin. He's a huge Redskins fan, and the same thing. I was like, man, what an awful trade. And he's actually said the exact same thing Gless said. He said, man, he's been hurt a lot. Like, yeah, he's really good, but he's never on the field. And he goes, look at the trade that the Lions made with Darius Slay the other day, and they didn't get a whole lot in return for him either, who I argue is probably a better player than Dunbar. So I just don't think the market's there. I think they got what they could for him, and he didn't want to be there. So at first glance, I kind of laughed and just shook my head and said, well, Bruce Allen must be running things for the Redskins again. But it sounds like they got what they could for him, and they got rid of a guy who's a malcontent at this point.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and move to Pastel. You mentioned him earlier, but Cam Phillips. And you mentioned the New England Patriots. I mean, it's not a bad call there. I mean, do you think he's got to be signed within the next couple of weeks? He's got to be the first wide receiver off the board. I mean, just based off of the numbers that he put up, right?
Yeah, and we're talking about the guy in the chat mentioned the Patriots because he's a system fit, right? He's a guy that ran a 4.8 40. Like, he's not very fast. He's not. He's undersized, but he catches a lot of passes. He's going to be that slot receiver that just is possession receiver. Mm-hmm. But I mean, yeah, the guy caught 455 yards receiving. He had 9 touchdowns on 44 targets. Like, the guy's a playmaker. He's going to be signed quickly. I did hear somewhere today that a lot of the NFL teams couldn't get footage until today on XFL football players, which is why there might be a slow start to signing besides your big-time athletes. But I would foresee in the next few days, 3 or 4 days, that we see an influx. And when I say influx, I'm saying 10 to 15 players in the XFL that are going to join the NFL within this week. Like that, not trying to have a hot take here, but I think there's that many good players in the XFL that will play in the NFL relatively shortly.
I wonder, and Gless, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to talk on this with your Echo, but I wonder if the run and shoot, the fact, because we mentioned, I mean, Cam Phillips, being in that system, he definitely excelled at it, but is being in the run and shoot offense, because there's nothing like it in the NFL right now, is that going to hurt players when it comes to trying to make that jump from the Houston Roughnecks to the NFL, particularly at wide receiver?
Yeah, I think it could. I think just because you don't really see a whole lot of it in the NFL. So I think coaches may be hesitant and may just think that he was the scheme guy, that he just happened to get open because defenses didn't know how to defend it. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I don't think I lean one way or the other.
Yeah. I could see an argument being made like, oh, his production was very high because he was in an extremely pass-happy offense, et cetera, like Les said. But I think the other side of the argument would be like, if you're a receiver in a run-and-shoot offense like that, you have to know every route you're running. You have to know how a defense is playing you. You have to be very smart about what you're seeing when you get to the line of scrimmage, because you and the quarterback are basically making the same calls at the line of scrimmage, and you're running what you think the quarterback sees as well with the defense, and it might not necessarily be what route they called coming out of the huddle. So I think there's a case to be made for both sides. Like, maybe were his stats a little inflated, but he was still the number one guy in the offense. He was still PJ Walker's favorite target, and we just established PJ Walker is a guy who a lot of teams coveted. So I think Cam, you know who I think, this call me crazy, but you know who I think is going to be a big Cam Phillips guy? Chucky. I think he's going to end up with the Raiders out in Las Vegas, man. That's where I think he's going to end up. I think Chucky's going to sign Cam Phillips. That's what I think.
I can see that. I will say this though about Cam Phillips. He's one of the best receivers ever to play at Virginia Tech. And let's get like the combine warrior out of our mentality. Like, okay, he didn't run a 4.40. He's not 6'3", but from a production standpoint, he's one of the best receivers ever at Virginia Tech. He's the best receiver ever in 1 year in the XFL.
Half a year.
The dude produces everywhere he's been. So I think people get so caught up in his size, so caught up in his 40 time. When guys, just look at the freaking tape. The guy can play.
For real, man.
Like, if I'm an NFL team, like, just sign him. And then, like, if he's not that good, cut him, I guess. But, like, everywhere he's played up until this, at big-time schools like Virginia Tech, XFL, number one team in the XFL, like, give this guy a chance. And I think he's going to get that chance, and I think he's going to prove people wrong that doubted him before this.
So while we're talking about wide receiver, I have an interesting question, and I'm going to start with you, Pastel, because I know what Kenny's going to say. If I gave you the choice for NFL, if you're an NFL GM, and you look at the LA Wildcats, you've got Nelson Spruce and you got Trey McBride. Based off of what you saw, I mean, I guess it depends on what your system is a little bit, but just based off of, what you saw from this season in the XFL, which one of those guys would you rather have? They both had injury concerns just at different times. We never really saw them much together to see who the dominant receiver was, who got favored by Josh Johnson. It was kind of like Trey McBride was hurt earlier in the year. Then he came back, and then Nelson Spruce went out, and they just never were healthy at the same time. But they both were extremely productive when they were playing.
So I would say Trey McBride. And because the time he did get hurt, he played through it and was productive. Like, the guy showed some, like, guts. Like, when he played through that last game in L.A. And Nelson Spruce, no fault to his own, but it's kind of an injury thing, and I agree with you, Riley. Nelson Spruce, he's been injured a lot, and when he's been on the field, he's been very productive. He's one of those guys you look at and you're like, all right, that's the next Wells Walker, right?
Yeah. I also do. Yeah, I want the chat to let us know who's watching right now. I want you to let us know who you would rather take between Spruce and McBride. I'm curious.
Right now, everybody's saying Spruce, which makes me completely second-guess my decision. But I think Trey McBride's one of those guys that he's got talent. He's really good. He plays through injury.
I think he's just more of a known commodity, Pastel.
It's exactly what it is.
The sample size is very small for McBride. Kenny, I'm assuming you're going to go with Spruce here just because I know you're a huge Spruce guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm torn. I think it depends on what you're looking for because they're two different receivers. Yeah, they might be similar in height and weight, but Spruce is a route master. He's not as quick as McBride. McBride ran a sub 4.40. He's very agile. He's a burner. And Spruce is a guy who lives over the middle. He's a
third down possession receiver.
Right. He's not going to drop anything. He's a great player. So it really just depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a guy, and I don't even say third down. I think Spruce can go out there and play in all three downs. He's a throwback. He's a Wayne Corbett, a Wes Welker. He's a guy who can go out there and play all over the field. But the problem is he's just limited athletically, where Trey McBride has a little bit more athleticism, but the takeaway to that is he's definitely not as crisp of a route runner, and you're not going to put him at all three wide receiver positions because he can't run all the routes on the tree. So to me, it just depends on what you're looking for. If you need to get more athletic, you sign Trey McBride. If you're looking for a guy who can complement more athletic receivers on the inside, then you sign Nelson Spruce. I think both guys are tremendous receivers.
That's just it, though. He's not as athletic, and he's injury prone. So you got like a double negative going on here with Trey McBride. I would have called Trey McBride injury prone.
Are we going to call him injury prone after 1.5 a season? I mean, he hurt his knee. I don't know.
But you can date this back from college into his time trying to go professional football. He's had multiple injuries, and I wish I could pull this up right now, but I think this is now 2 or 3 injuries, and it's all within the legs, like ACL. I
can't remember what happened to him when he was with the Rams.
I'll say this: Nelson Spruce has outproduced Trey McBride pretty much everywhere he's gone. I mean, he was the Pac-12 all-time leading receiver at one point. Trey McBride played for William & Mary.
That's an unfair comparison almost, though.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm just saying he's outproduced him though, even in college at a higher level.
Yeah.
So it's not like Nelson Spruce is just some out of nowhere guy who's never produced. Trey McBride has the potential, but he's never put it together.
I want to make sure I get this in here, okay? I want to make sure I get this in here. Spruce spent some time with the LA Rams. Oh, speaking of the LA Rams, have you guys seen the new logo?
Oh God.
What do you think?
Garbage.
Let me know, chat. What do you think of the new logo?
I didn't.
Gless doesn't mind it. Okay.
I don't mind it. I don't think it's great.
I wish I had it to bring it up right now, but I don't. I should have thought about that. But if you guys,
it's like the Jacksonville Jaguars a few years ago went to that like cartoonish little Jaguar. It's kind of the same thing with LA. It's like a very cartoon LA kind of look. Like absolutely. Yeah. Only the colors. I do like the colors, like that lighter blue with the yellow. But outside of that, this is Bush League.
Yeah,
I just don't get. I don't get why everyone needs to freaking rebrand all the time. Like the Miami Marlins have rebranded more times than they've been to the playoffs. Seriously.
Well, when you only sell 5,000 tickets a game, you kind of got to rebrand so people buy new merch because there's definitely not buying the current merch.
Yeah, but I just don't get why did the Rams have to rebrand just because they moved to LA? I mean, I love their current, or I guess now their old logo. I don't get what was so wrong with it. And then they went back to the old school Rams when they were first in LA. Got away from the St. Louis, more like, I don't know, goldy look, and went to the more traditional Rams look. I just don't get why teams have to rebrand all the time, like the Jags when they rebranded. You could go down the list. I feel like more teams, they botch. I mean, the Miami Dolphins had, when they wear their throwback jerseys, they're one of the best jerseys in the league. And fans beg for them to keep them. But then they go back to that awful new rebranded look. And I know it's mostly about money, about merchandise sales and whatnot.
The Bucks did it too a couple of years ago, and they got rid of those awesome Jolly Roger unis they had, and now they get those terrible futuristic uniforms. They look terrible.
They're bringing them back though.
Are they really?
Permanently?
Oh,
I saw a leaked uniform the other day. They're bringing back the old Super Bowl era pewter Jolly Roger kind of deal.
Good. That's awesome.
I feel like more teams botch their rebrands than hit a home run. Yeah,
but I feel like there's a reason they're rebranding because they feel like they're struggling where they're currently at. Like we just mentioned Tampa Bay, we mentioned Jacksonville, two struggling franchises. And let's not kid ourselves. LA has not been that great as far as a new market. The only reason they've been doing okay,
if you rebrand.
Right, but they went to the Super Bowl, and that was the only reason they were relevant. And now that they kind of struggled, that fan base completely just said, I got better things to do in LA. LA is a tough market. I mean, ask the Chargers, LA Chargers right now. It's just a tough market. And I guess rebranding, you got to try something at this point.
Yeah, true. I just saw that on the Discord. It was shared earlier, and I just was like, really? That's it? That's the logo? Okay.
Not good. Not good.
While we're talking about LA, this is a good transition. So, I think the XFL, they need to keep looking for those PJ Walkers. They need to keep looking for the Jordan Tamus, that young up-and-coming talent that doesn't have the tape, and are trying to get some game film out there and have a lot of upside. And I think those are why you saw, they were two of the top three quarterbacks in the XFL this year. And they have the most upside, and combined with their age, that's why you saw they were the first two to be signed. The other guy that's in that top three, Josh Johnson, he's been around the block. He's a known commodity in the NFL world. I mean, God, he's been on how many NFL teams?
13.
I mean, by the end of it, he's going to be like the Julio Franco of football. He's going to literally play for every team.
Dude, we are having some great name drops today. Wayne Corbett, Julio Franco. It's been pretty solid.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Julio Franco was going to play till he died. Legit play till he died.
That's funny.
But anyways, I'm curious. I think Josh Johnson is going to sign because he already was almost signed, and the XFL blocked it. He almost signed back with the Lions. So he's going to get picked up, but I'm curious of when that is. And just, looking forward for the XFL, trying to replace guys, you have to have a good mixture of guys like Josh Johnson, who people know.
Yep.
They know the name Josh Johnson. They've seen him in an NFL uniform. And guys like Jordan Ta'amu who is this guy again? Let me check up on him. Holy crap, this guy's got some talent. He may be raw, but he's got some talent. They need some combination there, but I'm just curious Josh Johnson could really go anywhere at this point, but just when you think he'll be picked up by an NFL team. Do you think it's going to be later towards training camp because people just kind of know who Josh Johnson is?
I mean, it's up to Josh Johnson at this point. I say that saying, he's probably the same player he was a year ago, and NFL teams knew that. You have 13 years of film on him. I think the NFL teams know what they're going to get from him. He's a very good quarterback, and he proved it with the XFL. At this point, is he for the money or is he for his brand? I would argue if he wants to play at this age, he's 33 years old, 34 years old. If he wants to play, sell his brand, stay with the XFL, enjoy your time playing football.
Be the face of the Wildcats.
Right. If you want to go be a second-team quarterback somewhere, there's plenty of teams that will want him to be a second-team quarterback, and you will get paid more. So it's really up to him, where he's at in life. Yep. Do you want to be a second-team quarterback, get paid more, or he'll be the face of a franchise and enjoy this wave of the XFL? It's a lot of excitement. So I'm not completely sold that he will be with an NFL team.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Brandon, because I felt like if he was going to sign, he would have signed probably today, because the teams you said earlier where the teams didn't have film on some of these guys, or they just got it today. They don't need the film on him, like you said. They already know he's a known commodity, and he's a guy who I'm sure will be a good second, maybe third string mentor type quarterback on a team somewhere, extra coach on the sideline. But does he want? And I would take it a step further. Not even a face of LA. He was arguably the other MVP candidate outside of PJ Walker.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
You're talking. Do you want to be an MVP candidate yearly in the XFL and make less money, or do you want to take the money and go play second and third string in the NFL? Which he's done his whole career. So at this point, yeah, like you said, it depends on where he's on in life. If he wants to play, he stays in the XFL. And I think the longer we wait to hear if he's signed or not, makes me think he's telling teams he's staying in the XFL.
Yep.
Yeah. He's in the twilight years of his career, definitely. So he has a much different choice than a PJ Walker or Jordan Ta'amu. Does he kind of, ride off in the sunset as the face of the LA Wildcats and really, gets a few years under his belt, gets the XFL going? Or does he make that jump back into the NFL and continue that carousel of teams that he's been on?
I hope to God he stays with the XFL, though.
Yeah,
he was so much fun to watch.
He really was.
You saw him that last game? Dude, just him and was it Norm Chow on the sideline?
When he went off on Norm
I
Chow.
loved it. I was so excited. And to see him actually go out there and just throw 4 touchdowns, I thought that was the week that the XFL finally identified what each team was, who the players were, and things were just clicking. And I was just so excited for that second half. And I would love to see somebody like him, who I already know what success he had in the XFL, come back and just ride that wave of excitement into the second year. I hope to God he stays, because he was so fun to watch. And we're not going to see that in the NFL. Let's just be honest. With him at this age, he's going to be a backup. Come to the XFL. Come on, Josh Johnson. I'm advocating for you right now. Come back. You've got pass sales approval. I will give you a hot take a week. Come on, man.
I think honestly, if I had to put odds on it, I think it's 50-50. I think it's 50-50. I think a team's going to have to give him a tremendous amount of money to walk away from a guaranteed starting spot and the potential face of the entire league. Because at this point, the top 3 quarterbacks that we had were PJ Walker, Jordan Ta'amu, and Josh Johnson. And it could have been in any order. It doesn't necessarily have to be in that order. But those were the top 3 we kind of had as our top echelon through the first 5 games of the season. So he's the only guy left. I mean, at this point, you're talking about you're talking about Landry Jones. You're talking about Taylor Cornelius, Luis Perez, and BJ Daniels are the only, and Josh Johnson are the only quarterbacks left.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, Cornelius may get a look based off how he played the last couple of games and considering how young he is. But I don't think any of the other quarterbacks really played well enough or especially consistent enough to really get a legit NFL look. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's those 3 guys, Ta'amu, Walker being the poster guys for making the move, and then Johnson kind of having a decision at a different point in his career. It'll be an interesting.
It'll
be interesting to see how it sorts out.
you also got to think with these like practice squad sizes increasing, and then just the overall new CBA agreement in the NFL, like the overall roster size increasing. Some of these players that we just mentioned, they might get that extra slot. So I'd be kind of curious with the new CBA agreement how this kind of affects the XFL at this point, and players that we just mentioned, maybe they go test their feet in the water in the NFL before they go back to the XFL and kind of keep building their brand.
Yeah, so I mean that's a good transition. Pastel is we wanted to touch base too because we haven't talked about it since the NFL players agreed to the new CBA and what that means for the XFL. And it quite frankly, I think it means quite a bit. And I don't think any of it's necessarily good. Now, I don't think it's going to ruin the XFL by any means, but I don't think it's none of it's good news. Which I'm sorry to bring you more bad news in a time like this, but I feel like it's worth talking about. Who has some of the CBA numbers in front of them? Because Pastel, you mentioned they're going to go from 10 players on each practice squad to 12. Is that next year or the year after? I think did it say 2021?
Yeah, it'll be. So I have the chart pulled up in front of me, and so it'll go in 2020 and 2021. It'll expand from the practice squad will expand from 10 players to 12, and then beginning in 2022, it'll expand from 12 to 14. Now there are stipulations with seasons of accrual and how many players you can have on the practice squad. So like you can't load up your entire practice squad with a bunch of guys who have 2-3 years of accrued playing time. So there are going to be limitations. I think it'll hurt a little bit. It'll obviously pull a little bit away.
You're talking about like losing 64 spots potentially.
Potentially, yeah. Potentially you could lose up to 64 spots or 64 players who would be in the XFL. Right. But I think the more guys who sign and the more guys who make active NFL rosters will curb some of that loss, because I think guys will start making the decision to stay with the XFL, to continue to rehabilitate their career, rehabilitate their film, and really shoot for shots on an active roster versus a practice squad or reserve contract. Because reserve contracts don't guarantee anything. You could be cut at minicamp, and then you missed the entire XFL season, and now you've got no game tape to show. So it'll hurt a little bit, but I don't think it's the doom and gloom that a lot of pundits and a lot of people are saying, because I think as long as the XFL continues to put out a good product and continues to put guys in the NFL, not just on practice squads, guys will roll the dice on their talent and their ability to forget it. I'm not going to stay on a reserve contract. I'm going to go play in the XFL. And then when the season's over, I'm going to go sign an active roster contract.
Yeah, however, I will say I think that's a little low of a number, Kenny, Riley, as far as 64 players. We're talking about active game day rosters increasing from 46 to 48 as well. And now we're talking about practice squad players going from 10 to 12. Don't you pull them
from the practice squad?
Yeah, isn't that? I don't think it's new players. You pull them up. They're dressed. They're emergency guys from the practice squad.
And one of those guys has to be an offensive lineman.
Yeah,
I believe is what I read. That move one of those two new guys to the active game day roster. One of them has to be an offensive lineman.
So you'll basically be like a hybrid practice squad active roster guy. So like it's basically like if you were on a practice squad, you would dress for the game, but you're still technically on the practice squad. And if you get pulled in, it's because of an emergency situation.
Okay, but still, then by 2022, we got 14.
Well,
players
you're doubling that.
So you're really looking at like over 100 players, 120 some players. So I do think it is a little bit more of an impact from you're grabbing this many more people that want to play in the NFL. And let's just be honest with ourselves. Like some people their life dream is to play in the NFL. So while it makes more sense for them to play in the XFL, some of them might just stay with the NFL because they're on the NFL. And it's cool to say you're on an NFL team. I think the biggest
money's a lot better.
And that's what I was going to get at this point, though, is by 2029, the league minimum, if you're on an active duty or active roster, is $1 million.
Well, yeah. I mean, they'll never compete with active NFL roster spots ever.
100%. The question is, where is the XFL in 2029? That's impossible to predict.
Yeah.
Where they're going to be at in 9 years. But hopefully, it's somewhere comparable from like where they are now at the NFL, so that they can still compete with them at that point and maybe raise their minimal to $200,000, $300,000. But
right,
that's where I kind of see the problem right now is they just raised the league minimum salaries to where it might entice players to stay.
Yeah, I was out of everything that came out, I was more worried about the practice squad. Even though I'm not that concerned about the practice squad stuff, I was more concerned about the practice squad stuff than really. And really, what it comes down to, it's not even practice squad. What it comes down to are guys going to be willing to sign future deals and reserve contracts versus going to the XFL. That's what it's going to come down to. And that's where
you saw that a little bit this year too, Kenny.
Yeah.
One name that comes to mind is the DC Defenders drafted James Vaughters as their first pick in the linebacker. I can't remember what it was. Phase 2, I think.
The front seven.
Yeah, the front 7. He was their first pick. The linebacker that was with the Bears. Then he came back to the Bears. Actually, was on the active roster, and I believe he signed a futures deal. So you're already kind of seeing that between the NFL practice squad fringe guys.
Yeah,
choosing whether to I'll stick with his futures contract or go and play in the XFL.
Yeah,
so I think that's just gonna be even more of a dilemma because you're expanding the pool.
That's the biggest thing because it's just all going to come down to are guys going to be willing to bet on themselves or not versus having an off-season paycheck. But that's really the biggest thing because they don't compete against each other when the seasons are in line, so you don't really have to worry about that. You just have to you're just gonna have to convince guys that and the more people that make the NFL, it's gonna soften that. But the salary thing, I'm not too concerned about, just because it's gonna be very difficult for an act to compete with an active spot.
It would take a while, and I think the biggest thing there, Kenny, I think the biggest key to success for the XFL is once they get past these first couple of years, and they've put their product on the field, and losing half a season definitely doesn't help you in that cause. But when they go back to the table with these networks, and they're like, all right, so you didn't pay any rights fees the first time around. It was more of an exposure type of deal. You gave us the opportunity to kind of prove ourselves. But that's where all these ridiculous salaries come from. Is these TV rights deals. I mean, you guys know about the NBA just made bank with that deal with ESPN. I mean, NFL bank, obviously with their huge contracts with CBS, NBC, like everybody. But
did you get that, Gus?
Yeah, I did. I got that.
What is that from?
It's from Step Brothers. I want to make bank.
Yes,
bro. I want to drive a Range Rover.
Drive a Range Rover. It's just, it's. I mean. I don't know, you have to get to the table and be able to say, okay, we have this product, now we need rights fees, and that's where your salaries can really, you can turn those up a notch. And I'm not saying necessarily compete with the NFL and their practice squad, but at least take another step in making the decision harder for guys. I think it's something that you can eventually get to if you prove that your league is stable enough. And in it for the long run, that it's not going anywhere, because that's also another thing. It's like it's still a gamble for guys to bet on the XFL being around for the long haul.
I have something for you, Pastel. I think where it's going to offset the practice squad dilemma is if they can
college football, baby.
Yeah, you're going to love it because you've advocated for this. More guys like Kenny Robinson show up to the XFL, and that could be the offset on maybe potentially losing some reserve or practice squad guys.
It will be the offset. There's going to be guys that are going to be kicked off their team this summer and this fall for academic reasons or just family reasons or whatever transfer reason they could possibly do. And after seeing the success that Kenny Robinson had, they 100% will go to the XFL now. Like, he laid the groundwork for those guys to go out and do that. And it might only be 4 or 5 players next year, but then it's 10 or 12 players a year after that.
Yep.
And if the XFL can keep building off of this, I think the college football game is going to, one, the NFL better adapt quickly, or the XFL is going to keep stealing that talent. The other thing I don't think we're factoring in right now is that there's actual a fan base for these teams now. Like, we kind of were like, hey, this is DC fans, we're Houston fans. But, like, really 2 weeks before the season, we're like, hey, what fan are you going to be? Because I have no clues on these teams or how they're going to be. As we go into our next year, we're going to actually have a fan base of DC Defender fans, the Seattle fan base. So every year, the fan base is going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So the XFL, in terms of just kind of like the following with the TV deals, the fan base, every year in theory should get better. Not to mention what me and Kenny just mentioned with the college football players. as long as they just stick with the grind and get through the hard times of the first year, possibly even the second year, I can see this being a very successful league and revolutionary in the sense of college football players not waiting 3 years to go play and build their brand early right now.
Yep.
You also do have to consider, though, that in a few years we're talking about players being eligible to be paid for their likeness. And how is that going to – because a big selling point for the XFL is – big selling point is come here and you'll get paid. And, right now in college you're not doing that. So if guys are, making some money off their likeness, are they going to be as inclined to jump? But I think like with NFL players, going from practice squads to the XFL, college guys taking a chance on the XFL, you just have to prove that you're going to be around for the long haul.
Yeah, and this would be a separate conversation for another day, obviously. But I think the guys who are going to benefit from their likeness in college aren't probably guys who are going to the XFL. Those guys are probably NFL like
first rounders.
Yeah, you're not paying the linebacker from Iowa. He's not going to have a national likeness campaign where guys like Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Fields, J.K. Dobbins, guys like that are going to get those big likeness deals. So, and those guys would never step foot in the XFL. But the guys like Kenny Robinson, guys who get kicked off, guys who are in the transfer portal because they don't fit the scheme or their coach left or whatever, they knocked up their girlfriend, whatever it might be. Those are the guys who are going to be going to the XFL. I would, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So, but that's a conversation for another day. I am freaking wiped, man. I've had a hell of a day. Glessner can't even talk right now.
It's so
He's just
frustrating.
been sitting there chatting with people.
Riley, do you have a shortness in breath? Do you have a fever? Do you have a slight cough? If you have any of these symptoms, you might need to get checked out for the coronavirus and stay for 14 days.
Does anyone that's watching, have you been diagnosed with the coronavirus?
Or know anybody who has.
Or know anyone that's been diagnosed?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Let's see this blow up right now.
Yeah, I don't know anybody personally.
I don't know anybody.
Well, here's one thing I do know is that you should tune in every Monday because that from now on, moving forward, we're going to be live every Monday at 9. We're going to be recording other episodes that we'll put out, throughout the week on various XFL topics, which we're going to be asking you, the fans, what you want to hear us talk about. Go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, and next week we're doing the I sent out onto across social medias and in our Discord of off-topic questions that you would want to ask us. So it doesn't have to be sports related. So we have a lot of great questions. We were going over some of them last night. We got to hash out some things.
It's gonna be so embarrassing.
There's a lot of funny things
for some of us,
over.
maybe.
But tune in next week at 9 because that's going to be kind of a get to know the Chalk Talk guys and our backgrounds and our history and everything like that. It's going to be next week's going to be a really fun show. It's not going to be necessarily very heavily sports related, but it's going to be a fun show nonetheless.
Gless, nod yes or no if it's cool for me next week to talk about the time where I woke in Daytona when I woke up and at the end of the bed was you and a police officer.
Yes.
Totally cool.
Yes, that's a yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was like day 2 of Daytona, too.
We could make a whole show about that trip.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, we'll have to hash some of that stuff out. What's appropriate and what's not. What's going to get us in trouble? We're
getting in trouble.
Yeah, we're screwed. Especially Army guy over here. We got to be real careful.
Yeah, we'll do a dry run before this.
Yeah.
Do a dry run. So we have an agenda. We're going to bring this up. Make sure you don't mention
everything.
Don't mention this girlfriend or this girlfriend. Don't mention this.
You act like I had multiple girlfriends growing up, man. Come on. Kenny dumped one of mine. Well, let's not talk about that, actually.
We're giving away too much now. Save it for next week.
I just wanted to give him a teaser. Daytona, Beach Fest, Glessner, police officer, end of my bed, 2 in.the morning. Do you know
Not
this
good.
man?
You know this man.
Not to mention, I can add more to that story because his older brother and I also ran into that same cop
Walking back from the library.
Exactly.
We can tell that part, right?
It says Gless is Mr. Echo tonight. According to the
It's
chats.
bad. I know.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Just know, moving forward, we're gonna be here on Mondays. I know it's crazy out there. People are still trying to figure out really what the hell's going on, how long this whole coronavirus thing's gonna last. I just read today that they're postponing the Summer Olympics. I mean, it's just it's moving farther and farther down the calendar. So at some point, we'll see how this affects the XFL offseason moving forward. And what they're gonna do. In terms of, last summer they had the summer showcases. Are they going to do those again? Are they going to even be able to do those again? So there's a lot of implications for the XFL, the sports world, and just society, man. It's just crazy. Like, I bought like 10 2-liters of Coke Zero today in fear that the governor's announcement today was going to be that he was going to shut down everything for like a week. And I was like, man, I need to stock up.
Riley's the toilet paper guy. He's got like 6 cases of TP.
Oh no! Next time I go into the food line, they're probably gonna have like limit 2 liters per person because of me.
Well, according to our fans, you need to slow down on that, bud.
Yeah, it'll catch up to me. All right. Well, make sure you give a like for the video. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so you get all of our latest content, and follow us on our other social media channels at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're at XFL Chalk Talk. For Pastel, Kenny, and Glessner, the mute Glessner, I'm Riley. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you all next week.
That was fun.